subscribe to the channel, and hear even more exciting stories. I tried to save the party, but ended up exposing truths okay. So I'll be honest. I never planned to be that person who throws a party and ends up writing a Reddit confessional about it. But here we are. Call me Sam, pronouns whatever, because at this point, my identity crisis is the least dramatic thing in this story. I hosted this party for 3 reasons. 1. I just moved into a new apartment, and everyone kept saying I needed to warm it up, show off the fact that I finally have a dishwasher. 2. My friends have been weirdly distant all summer, and I thought this would be a way to pull everyone back together. 3. Deep down, I guess I wanted to prove to myself that I could make something fun happen, control the narrative for once, instead of always being the background character in someone else's group chat. The guest list was a predictable disaster in the making. My college best friend Jess, her on-again off-again boyfriend Mark, the human storm cloud, my neighbor Alice, who I've only ever seen in pajamas and whose real job is a complete mystery, and my work buddy Kyle, who's funny until he drinks. Sprinkle in a few significant others, a cousin or 2, and you've got the recipe for the kind of chaos only a group text can create. I should have known something would go wrong when Jess texted. I can't believe Mark actually wants to come. Pray for us. That, and the fact that I accidentally invited my ex, still not sure how I managed that. Maybe I'm a masochist. But I was determined. Spotify playlist? Check. Snacks I can't pronounce? Check. 3 types of chips and more wine than necessary? Super check. If you're thinking, this sounds like the prologue to a meltdown, congratulations, you're more insightful than I was. But I figured, what's the worst that could happen? It's just a party, right? Spoiler, it was never just a party. The evening actually started out pretty chill, which now feels like a cosmic prank in retrospect. People trickled in carrying half-hearted bottles of wine and bags of chips, the kind where you wonder if they even looked at the flavor before grabbing. For a while, everything was textbook. Awkward small talk, tour of my tiny apartment, the icebreaker game I forced on everyone because I'm apparently that host. But then, little things started to go off. Mark showed up late, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else, and immediately started interrogating Jess about who else was there. My ex, Ben, rolled in like it was a movie premiere and made a beeline for the drinks, studiously avoiding eye contact with me, which was fine, except he then started chatting up Alice, and for a split second, I wished I'd lost his number for real. The official spark, the moment I felt the air shift, was a toast. It's always a toast. I'd barely gotten everyone's attention when Kyle, already a couple beers deep, stood up and slurred. Here's to old friends, new memories, and hoping Sam's ex doesn't break anything this time. Cue nervous laughter and a couple of ohs, but also a weird tension that immediately set my teeth on edge. Jess shot me a look. Apology, warning, I told you so, all in one. I tried to laugh it off, but I could feel the cracks forming. Mark and Jess started bickering over who'd forgotten to buy ice. Ben and Alice disappeared onto the balcony, which I told myself was totally not a big deal. Meanwhile, Kyle started telling a story about that night at the lake that nobody wanted to relive. By the time someone spilled wine on the couch, white couch, of course, the mood was on life support. I felt the need to keep the party from sinking. My party, my responsibility. That was my first mistake. Thinking I could hold it all together just by smiling harder and refilling everyone's drinks. I had no idea what was really about to unravel, or that trying to save the night would mean watching it blow up in ways I couldn't have predicted. I should have recognized the warning signs, a spilled drink, Mark sulking, Ben's laugh too loud from the balcony. But denial is a powerful drug. I hustled to the kitchen, pulling out every snack like a magician with a bottomless hat. Who wants guac? Hey, who brought these weird seaweed crisps? I called out, desperate to pivot away from the tension. Kyle, ever the willing accomplice, started rating chips out loud, and for a minute I thought I'd wrangled the party back from the brink. I tried everything in the host's manual. First, the fun group game, 2 truths and a lie, which devolved instantly because Mark insisted on using it to passive-aggressively roast Jess. I never cheated on anyone. I always buy the ice, and I'm the life of every party. Jess's smile was tight enough to snap. Alice attempted to lighten the mood by recounting a hilarious story about a disastrous Tinder date, but as she described her date's uncanny resemblance to Ben, The awkward laughter confirmed. Yes, it was Ben. Meanwhile, my ex was in full show-off mode, challenging Kyle to a beer-chugging contest while Alice rolled her eyes so hard I thought they'd fall out. In a last-ditch effort, I cranked up the playlist to drown out the squabbling and suggested karaoke. That worked for about one song, until Mark took the mic to sing Somebody That I Used to Know with a pointed look at Jess, who responded by downing her wine and vanishing into my bathroom. I went after Jess, hoping to talk her down, but she barely got 2 words out before she started crying. Why did you invite him, Sam? He ruins everything. My own anxiety flared. I just wanted everyone to get along. This was supposed to be fun. She sniffled. You can't force fun, Sam. And you can't fix everyone. She wasn't wrong. Back in the living room, Alice and Ben were mid-argument about some inside joke, and Kyle had moved on to loudly debating whether pineapple belonged on pizza with Mark. I looked around and realized my party wasn't just teetering. It was a domino about to topple the whole night. But I wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. If I'd known what secrets were bubbling beneath the surface, I might have called it then. But instead, I kept pushing, throwing myself into damage control, not realizing that sometimes the harder you try to glue people together, the more everything cracks apart. I wish I could say there was a moment when everything went completely off the rails, but really, it was a slow burn, a series of weird glances, whispered conversations, and accidental slips that started stacking up. After Jess finally left the bathroom, mascara smudged and mood ruined, she sat at the edge of the group, quietly scrolling through her phone. Mark kept hovering, clearly itching for a fight, and I tried to redirect by passing around board games, but no one was really buying it. That's when it started. Alice, in a bid to liven things up, decided to play bartender and mix something suspiciously strong. Halfway through her second drink, she leaned in and told me, "Honestly, you're way too good for Ben." She said it casually, but it felt like a gut punch. "Wait, what do you mean?" I asked, my voice lower than I'd planned. Alice's eyes flickered, like she'd said too much. "Forget it," she said, waving her hand. But I couldn't. Kyle, now tipsy and nostalgic, launched into a rambling story about the worst secret anyone ever kept in this group. And suddenly everyone was silent. Mark, never one to let things go, smirked and muttered, "Yeah, like Jess's little weekend trip last summer." Jess's head snapped up, eyes wide. "Excuse me," she shot back, voice icy. There was a strange energy in the room. People were glancing between Mark and Jess, then at me, as if I should somehow intervene. I tried to laugh it off. Come on, not every secret's worth digging up tonight, right? But no one really smiled. That's when Ben, who'd been way too quiet, finally spoke. "Maybe it's time we all stop pretending," he said, voice steady but cold. He looked at me, then at Alice, and for a heartbeat, I wondered if I'd stepped into some alternate universe. I mean, if we're exposing things, why don't we talk about why Alice really stopped coming around last year? My stomach dropped. Suddenly, it felt like the whole party was made of glass. One wrong move, and everything would shatter. It wasn't just about spilled drinks or awkward karaoke anymore. There were stories under the surface, and in my desperate attempt to keep things light, I'd accidentally stirred them all up. I caught Jess's eye. She looked hurt, defensive, and completely exhausted. Kyle looked ready to either laugh or cry. Mark was practically gloating. Alice looked like she wanted to disappear. And me? I realized too late that maybe, just maybe, some parties are meant to fall apart. Because sometimes, that's when the truth finally gets out. It happened faster than I could process, like someone had sliced open the air. Alice set her drink down with a clink and looked at Ben. "Really? You want to do this now?" Her voice trembled, but there was a fire behind it. The room went quiet. Even Mark stopped scrolling on his phone. Ben shrugged, too calm. "Maybe I'm tired of being the bad guy. Maybe everyone deserves to know why things got so weird." Alice laughed, sharp and angry. "You mean why I stopped showing up to your game nights after you told everyone I was in love with Jess?" Which, by the way, was never true. Jess sat bolt upright. "Wait, what?" Her voice cracked like a whip. For a second, no one spoke. Then Alice, cheeks flushed, turned to Jess. "You never heard that? Ben told everyone I was obsessed with you. He said it as a joke, but then Mark got all weird, and I just couldn't deal." Mark's jaw tightened. "That's not what I heard. Ben told me you and Jess hooked up, and he stopped himself, realizing too late the depth of what he'd just said. Jess looked stricken. Oh my God, Mark. Why didn't you just ask me? Why would you believe him over me? Ben just sat there, looking smug. I didn't think it'd be a big deal. You all act like you're such a happy group, but half of you can't stand each other. Kyle, caught off guard, tried to lighten the mood. So, should we go back to karaoke, or? Nobody laughed. Alice stood, hands clenched. You ruined my friendships, Ben. You made me feel like a freak for nothing. Jess wiped away tears, her voice suddenly small. I wish you'd told me. I never believed any of that. I felt the walls closing in. My heart hammered. This was my party, my fresh start, and now everyone was bleeding onto the carpet. I looked at Ben, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. Maybe he thought he was doing us all a favor. Maybe he just liked chaos. It was like years of minor resentments and half-truths were finally free. The laughter, the games, the drinks, all had been a flimsy shield. I wanted to yell, to run, to fix it all. But I'd been the one desperate to keep everyone together, and now I was standing in the wreckage of my own creation. That's when Mark, voice cracking, whispered, maybe we should all just stop pretending. The silence that followed felt heavier than the truth itself. Nobody moved at first. We all just sat in that electric silence, a weird mix of shame and anger clinging to the walls. My brain spun. How did a party about snacks and cheap wine become the stage for years of pent-up resentment? Jess and Alice just stared at each other, tears welling in Jess's eyes, rage darkening Alice's face. Ben looked away, suddenly less smug, and Mark rubbed his temples like he wished he could evaporate. Finally, Jess stood up. Why does everyone keep talking about me instead of to me? Her voice shook, but she held her ground. She turned to Alice. I'm sorry I didn't know. I'm sorry if I ever made you feel weird. But Ben, she whirled on him, why did you have to lie? Ben opened his mouth, but nothing came out. For once, he looked almost ashamed. I don't know, he mumbled. It was just a joke. I thought it would blow over. I didn't think it mattered. The room bristled. You never think it matters. Alice's voice broke. That's why no one trusts you anymore. Mark, always the hothead, slammed his drink on the table. This is what you do, Ben. You stir up drama, and then walk away. I believed your crap, and almost blew up my relationship for nothing. The words were ugly, but the raw pain behind them was real. Kyle, usually Switzerland in our drama wars, actually got up and put a hand on Alice's shoulder. None of us are innocent, he said, surprisingly serious. We let things fester. We gossiped, we chose sides, we pretended not to notice when things got weird. He looked at me. Even you, Sam. You always want everyone happy. Sometimes you have to let things fall apart. That hurt, because it was true. I felt exposed, embarrassed, furious at Ben, guilty for not seeing the signs, crushed for Jess and Alice, furious at myself for hosting the disaster in the first place. The confrontation kept circling. Apologies tangled with accusations, tears with laughter as someone remembered an old inside joke. It was chaos, but it was honest for the first time all night. Somewhere in the mess, we started to talk like real people, not actors in some sitcom party. It was messy, emotional, and absolutely necessary. And as the truth settled, a strange calm took its place, a quiet that felt like relief, even if nothing was fixed. I looked around and realized. Maybe letting things shatter was the only way to start cleaning up. The party didn't end so much as unravel. Jess disappeared into my bedroom with Alice, and I could hear muffled voices, anger, relief, maybe even a little laughter. Mark sulked by the window, clutching his drink with the intensity of a shipwreck survivor. Ben retreated to the kitchen, the bravado finally stripped away, poking listlessly at the empty chip bowls. Kyle sat across from me on the couch, letting out a long, low whistle. Well, Sam, he said, you wanted a memorable night. I tried to smile, but it felt brittle. The adrenaline from the confrontation was wearing off, leaving only the raw ache of embarrassment and guilt. It was my party. I'd invited these people, forced the fun, ignored the cracks. Had I really thought I could control the narrative, fix everyone's problems with enough snacks and silly games? I replayed every moment. The laughter that was just a little too forced, the secrets that had simmered for years. The truth was, I'd seen the red flags before. Jess's tension with Mark, Alice's disappearance, Ben's casual lies. I just didn't want to look too closely. Now, I didn't have a choice. When Jess and Alice finally emerged, their faces streaked with tears, but lighter somehow. Jess hugged me. "Thank you, Sam," she whispered. "For the party. For letting this happen, I guess." I hugged her back, a lump in my throat. Maybe things wouldn't magically be okay, but at least nothing was hidden anymore. Mark slouched over. "Sorry about your couch," he muttered, sheepish for the first time all night. I shrugged. "It's just a couch. We're still here, right?" The group trickled out one by one. Quiet goodbyes, a little awkward, a lot more honest. Ben lingered last, offering a half-hearted apology. "Didn't mean to blow things up," he said, avoiding my eyes. I just nodded, too tired for more. When the door finally closed, I was alone. My apartment was a mess. Wine stains, empty glasses, forgotten jackets. But I felt lighter, somehow. The secrets were out. The old friendship couldn't go back to what it was, but maybe it could become something real if we let it. Sitting in the silence, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. Just relieved, and maybe, finally, ready to let go of being everyone's fixer. Maybe this was the party I needed, even if it wasn't the one I wanted. The days after the party were quiet and strange, like the air right after a thunderstorm. Group chats were silent except for a few awkward memes from Kyle. Jess texted me, thanking me again and saying she and Alice were actually talking. Like, really talking, for the first time in forever. That felt like a tiny victory. Mark apologized for his outburst, and for once, it seemed genuine. We agreed we'd both been carrying way too much resentment for way too long. Ben sent a long, rambling message about needing to work on himself, and honestly, I hoped he meant it. Maybe this really was the wake-up call he needed. I realized I didn't miss the version of him I'd invited. I missed the person I thought he was, before all the lies and drama. The truth was, some friendships felt stronger, others felt like they were on pause. But for the first time in years, everything felt honest. Nobody was pretending anymore. My anxiety faded, just a little, knowing I didn't have to keep spinning plates for everyone else. Maybe the party was a disaster, but the cleanup left something real behind. I stopped trying to fix every problem. I started answering texts slower, letting go of the urge to micromanage people's feelings. When I ran into Jess and Alice at a cafe, they invited me to sit, and it wasn't weird. It felt new and real. That night taught me that breaking things can be the first step to rebuilding them honestly. Sometimes the mess is the best part, because it finally lets the truth breathe. Looking back, I'm still not sure if I'd call that night a disaster or a blessing in disguise. For days, I replayed every cringe moment, every harsh word, wondering if I could have done anything differently. But the truth is, I was always so scared of things falling apart that I never let anyone be real, not even myself. It turns out, honesty is messier than secrets, but it's also lighter. When I stopped scrambling to fix everyone's feelings, I finally made space for my own. My biggest fear was losing my friends, but what I actually lost was the exhausting job of being the group's emotional janitor. The party forced all of us to face the mess together. It broke some things, maybe for good, but it also freed us. Jess and Alice grew closer than ever. Mark seemed a little less angry. Even Ben, for all his flaws, started to act like a human being again. And me? I learned I could survive the fallout, and that was its own relief. So, was it worth it? I think so. I'd rather have awkward honesty than polite lies any day. Sometimes, the only way to fix what's broken is to let it break. If you're reading this, dreading your own party, or watching your friend group unravel, here's what I wish I'd heard. Stop trying to save everyone at your own expense. Secrets have a way of surfacing, no matter how hard you work to keep things fun or normal. The world won't end if the truth comes out. Sometimes, it's the only way you actually move forward. My biggest lesson? Let things get messy. Let people be awkward. Let emotions spill. Stop carrying everyone's baggage. Be honest, even if it stings. You might lose something, sure, but what remains will finally be real. So next time you feel the urge to fix a party or a friend or yourself, ask if you're just covering cracks that need the light. If you let things fall apart, you might just find out what and who is truly worth keeping. And that, surprisingly, is its own kind of happy ending.